Welcome to the Mentor Studio, where today's thought leaders and leading entrepreneurs inspire and bring real-world ideas that help you take your career to levels you've only dreamed of. Now buckle in. Here's your host, Michael Silvers.
Hi, everyone. I wanted to welcome you to the Mentor Studio. I'm just so glad you're here today. I am so honored. One of my mentors and guest is on with us today. For those of you listening to the podcast right now, you're probably driving in a car somewhere. You might be eating breakfast. We know how people do it when they listen to podcasts. They're multitasking. So again, as everybody knows, we'll have show notes, and on the mentorstudio.com, we'll have all the show notes, the way to connect with Jim, and anything else you need. Also, we have a lot of shows coming up. It's really exciting, and everybody knows that I don't usually announce what the next show is because I like the suspense. But we're going to have Joseph McClendon will be joining us, and Mark Uzak again will be joining us. I'm going to have Mary Glorfield do a call for us towards the end of the year, and she was Tony Robbins' vice president for 18 years. And if you ever wanted to know how to be on stage, how that the whole amazing Tony Robbins happened, she'll talk about that. And also just about the world and where it's going and what she sees with everybody that she puts on. So we're going to have a great bunch of shows, and then we have some special guests also into the next year because we're already booking into 2021. So just go to thementorstudio.com. We're also going to put a calendar up there. We also have Tuesday events every Tuesday that we can invite people to. It's networking for your business, and we do training. That's what we do. We do it every single Tuesday at 11 a.m. So as a member of the Mentor Studio, you get that complimentary because we believe that's our way to also give back as we take this out to the world and really help the villages out there. So without any further ado, an honor of mine, this gentleman has been in personal development for a couple of years, right? We don't want to ever go from there. And he was one of the mentors because one of my first moves, most people know back in the 90s, was in network marketing, right? And so being in network marketing, I heard his name and his business partner's name a lot. And also another gentleman that we really respect, a really tall guy with a first name, Tony. He was also a big part of really Tony's education. And so he's been a mentor to people I know, people I work with, and so many of us out there. Let's give a big round of applause to Mr. Jim Britt. Jim, thank you for being on.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you on here. And, there's going to be people on here actually that don't know who you are. There's people that listen to the show don't know who I am.
There you go.
Why don't you tell us just a little bit about your background and really also what got you into doing what you did and how you created that with Jim?
Well, I'll try to make it short, but I've been in the speaking field now for 44 years. So I've seen all the changes take place over the years. And I've also been involved in the network marketing industry over the years. That's where I got my start. I'm basically a high school dropout, no education formally, no business background, no nothing. I worked in a factory on an assembly line. And one night I was working a swing shift and got off at 12:30, and the fellow stopped me and says, "Hey, you going to work here the rest of your life?" And I'm going, I don't know, maybe. And he said, "Come go to this meeting with me." He said, "I think it's something we could do to make some extra money." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And he said, "I don't know. They just told me to bring somebody with me." And I said, "Well, I'm not your guy. I'm not taking off my night off the next night and go to some meeting." And he said, "Well, if you go with me," he said, "I'll buy the beer afterwards." And I said, "Well, what time's the meeting?" And so I went to the meeting, not expecting anything, looking forward to having a few beers afterwards. And I watched a presentation for about an hour, and as it unfolded, I was just blown away with it. And I kept telling myself, I can do this. I can do this. And then I said, and I can get rich doing it. And I didn't know what rich was. My income was about $64 a week. And so rich to me would have been doubling that.
Right.
But I saw people making $10,000, $15,000 a month, and that just blew me away. So long story short, I got started in that business. It cost me $4,000 to start. I only had $9. So that was a challenge. So I went to 23 different loan companies and banks. Finally, the 23rd one loaned me $4,000, and I got started. And I'll never forget, my training was, the guy says, your job is talking to people. He said, if you talk a little, you'll learn a little. If you talk a lot, you'll learn a lot. I said, okay, well, how much is a little? And he said, 1 a day. Well, how much is a lot? 10 a day. I said, okay, I'll do the 10. And so I set out to talk to 10 people a day. Didn't know what to talk about or how to talk. I mean, I never sold anything in my life. And over the next 12 months, I quit my job the first day. And over the next 12 months, I lost everything I owned. My home, both my vehicles, my furniture, everything was taken. And I'll never forget, it was 5 days before I had to be out on the street by order of the sheriff. And I had 15 cents in my pocket, a wife and a child, and didn't know what to do. And when you mentioned mentoring, somebody knocked on my door, and I'm assuming it was probably a bill collector of some kind, but I had nothing left to take. So they opened the door and he said, I understand you're working really hard and not making any money. And he was a guy from the company. And so he came in, we sat down on my floor for 2 hours and he taught me what I was doing wrong and what I needed to be doing. Because of the last 12 months, I talked to 10 people every day, every single day. 3,650 people told me no. So people ask me today, how you handle rejection? I said, I've already done that. so that's how I got started. And my business took off like a rocket. And my next year, I earned, in that business, I earned almost $500,000. Wow. And I started another business, not in the network marketing field. By the end of my second year in business, I was a millionaire. So that's how I got started. And I met Jim Rohn at that company, so that we became best of friends back in like 1970 and joined up together in business shortly after that.
Right. It's amazing how what I love about the story too is you were willing to go back to the mentor. I think there's that, right? There's the time in mentoring where we almost have the fear, for some reason, I'm not successful or successful enough, and I'm afraid to ask the questions. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I look at everybody as a mentor. I mean, I think everybody's a student and a teacher. And it's interesting, that fellow that came by and spent time with me, I don't remember his name. And I never saw him again after that. Mm-hmm. But what a life-turning experience that 2 hours I spent. And just a little tweak was all I was missing. And my business took off. So, I think, mentorship and coaching is critical. I mean, if you don't know something, go to somebody that does, instead of trying to figure it out and spend all your lifetime trying to figure things out. So it's critical, I think, if you want to get ahead. And a lot of people go, well, I don't have the money. Well, if you don't have the money, probably the best place to invest it or go get it and invest it is in mentorship or coaching to take you where you want to go.
Right. And it makes a big difference, because a lot of times we try to do it on our own, right? People are always, especially entrepreneurs, to have that tendency of wanting to do it on their own. And when I tell my story, I say, I was director of coaching for Chris Howard and Harv Eker and Success Resources in the US and Peak Potentials. And I said, there's something about that story. Is everybody seeing that I partnered along the way, that I always created partnerships? So, you created a partnership with Jim Rohn. Can you talk a little bit about that business and why you did that? From the perspective of, instead of, even though you're still doing the network marketing, but now you're mentoring, you're training, you're teaching, and what brought you to that love?
Well, as I mentioned, Jim and I met in that company. He was doing training, and first time I'd ever heard any training like that. And so everywhere he would show up in a 5-state region, I would be there, listening to the same seminar over and over and over. And that company ultimately closed their doors about 2 years, maybe 2 years later. And I lost track of Jim, changed his phone number. We didn't have cell phones and stuff. So I lost track of him. So I was doing some building and real estate development. So I was in Phoenix. I lived in Oklahoma, but I was in Phoenix looking at some property, and walked into a restaurant to have breakfast that one morning. And there sat Jim Rohn. So we had breakfast together, caught up, and he said, why don't you join me in business? I said, doing what? And he said, promoting seminars. And so I did. I wasn't that good at it the first month, but I learned quickly, and we put probably close to 1 million people through events over the years. So it was a great business experience and personal experience with Jim as well, and he was a very, very close friend.
I think that's an important part too, because there's the tendency people get a little bit sometimes starstruck, or you have a mentor because, they're going to change my life, but you still have to do the work. It's still, and I do believe greatly in working with people that like, and trust.
Yeah.
I think that's an important relationship, because Jim, how many shiny baubles are out there that, right? Everybody's looking for that next piece, and you don't always hit it. Like you said, even in the beginning of your business, how many people did you have to talk to? Right.
Yeah. With Jim Rohn, I always looked up to him as a kind of starstruck a little bit in the beginning. And then we were doing a leadership seminar at a ranch, and where all of the people were staying in the bunkhouse, and Jim and I and a couple of people were in the main house. So I'm sitting there, turn the TV on, and having a glass of wine, and Jim went off into the bedroom and take a shower or whatever. Well, he came back out to the kitchen in his underwear, and I'm going, he's just like me.
Right.
so I'd never seen him like that. So I go, wow.
I like that. That's, I think too, is we see that it's funny you say that. I didn't have quite the same experience, but living with Harv on the road for 3.5 years. Him, I, and Michelle sat in every single green room in all these different countries. And probably for the first 6 months, I didn't say anything, because I knew him, 10 years before this. And he mentored a lot of my team, and we brought a lot of people to the Millionaire Mind, right? And then I finally just loosened up. It was Michelle, his partner, just said, ask what you need. He will always be there for you. And he was wonderful, actually treated me amazing on the road. And I realized again, because there was one time he was changing, took me up to his suite. It's the only way we had time before he had to go on stage again. And that same realization is there's no difference.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I was going to say, is when my wife and I started in this business, we did it together. The biggest, I'd like you to talk about being of service, because whether we volunteered or we moved chairs or a microphone had to be run and a new one bought, we always came from the how can we be of service and how can we help? Can you talk a little bit about that in business?
Well, we did the same thing. I used to show up at Jim Rohn's events. He was kind of we called him the lead generator. He did the evening event that we sold a lower ticket to. But I would show up maybe 3 hours before and check, make sure all the tables were right. I used to tell my staff, it takes 2 to 3 years to train a hotel, to set it up the way you want it. So we're always rearranging, doing things, and taking chairs out, putting chairs in, checking the microphone 5 times. But yeah, it's and I'd always find the wait staff there and give them a couple $100 and say, hey, take good care of us. So they're servicing us as well. But I think it's so important in business to do more than expected, and then check on it. Mm-hmm. Instead of just doing, as little as you can. But giving service and creating value for people, that's really key. Without looking at it as a way to earn more income. It's just something that you do if you're in business, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Personally, I'm always thinking, in fact, this mentor back then taught me this. He said, if you'll always have in mind when you meet somebody, he said, I don't care who it is or where they are, if it's on an airplane, if it's in a party or whatever, he says, always be thinking, what can I do to help this person? Mm-hmm. And I've basically lived my life that way.
Yeah, I love it. That's, I met for a short time, obviously Zig Ziglar, and that's that, that's just, he always came from that. How can I be of service? And how are you going to service those around you? And that was also another time in my life that was a big, aha. And did you ever work with Bill Gove too? I met him right towards the end, and I found him just brilliant.
I never worked with him, but I did know him or know of him. I worked with Zig,
I know,
and Og Mandino, and Brian Tracy, and Earl Nightingale. I did a couple events with Earl Nightingale, even, which was kind of one of the grandfathers of personal development.
Yes, he was.
But yeah, it's Tom Hopkins. I mean, just what I tried to do is co-brand myself with people that were out there, that were well known, and if I could get on stage with them, then it helped me to co-brand and excel my brand. So that was always my objective. We didn't have social media, and if you wanted to write a book, you had to print 30,000 copies of it, not like today.
That's right. And that's great. So the point was, it's about really being of service, and you don't always have to be the shining star. And sometimes that's just not what your role is. It's truly to be of service, and be of service for those around you, and pick the ones like and trust. I think makes a big difference. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in the network marketing field. I've never been out of it, but mostly my experience has been in the speaking area over the last 43 years. But my philosophy is always, I don't want to be up on stage. I want the people that's accomplished something more, that's working with me, that's helped me get where I am. I want them to be on stage. I want to get out there and applaud for them. So I know I was at one company, I was the recruiter of the year, or actually the recruiter of the quarter for, I think it was 6 consecutive quarters. And they always called me up on stage. Well, every time, for some reason, I was out of the room. But then I learned something from that. One of my group came up to me afterwards, and they said, "How come you don't get up on stage? We want to applaud you." So it kind of goes both ways. I wasn't like not going up there. I just didn't happen to be in the room when they announced it. So.
Right. I know, it's always, it's the time you get the drink, or you have to use the restroom. I mean, we're human beings. The other thing too, for our audience, sometimes they listen to these shows, sometimes they go away. We're all busy doing things, but what are 2 or 3 things that they could do in the next couple of weeks that could help them with their habits, their attitudes? Just what are 3 either life issues or things they could get up with every day you could let them know?
Well, there's probably 37 years ago, my whole approach changed in the personal development field. I was thinking about our habit patterns that we have as human beings, and both positive and negative. And the positive ones, it would be hard to live without, the ones that become second nature. Like walking or talking or driving a vehicle. You don't have to get back in the vehicle every time and learn how to drive it. You just get in and go. So we probably do hundreds of things we don't realize we do out of habit. That would be difficult to live without. But on the other side of that, we have negative habit patterns that become second nature, and we don't know we're doing them. So what's happening for people, they get stuck. And they try to break out of something they don't know they're in. So it's like a self-imposed prison that they've created through subconscious programming over their lifetime, or it's been created. They might not have intentionally created it, but their programming is in there. So those habit patterns run your life, and they become core beliefs. So when they're a core belief and you launch out to try to change that, maybe you believe money's hard to earn and you can never get ahead financially. Well, if that's your core belief, you're going to do everything in your power to prove to yourself and the outside world that what you believe is true, even to your detriment. But we're trying to break out of something we don't know we're in. And I call it an addictive cycle. And every time you try to break out, it just keeps strengthening that cycle. And you try it again, and you try it, whether it's about money or weight loss or health or relationships or whatever it is. And what I've done over the years is help people to recognize the cycle that they're in. And now that habit pattern becomes conscious. So every time they exercise it, whether it's procrastination or being late for meetings habitually or whatever it might be, it's now a conscious choice. And then I show them how to break the cycle. And to me, that's critical. But in order to break it, you've got to decide what you want in life. You know, what you want in your business, whatever it is you're going for, you've got to decide to the point where nothing less than that will do. Nothing. I mean, if it's just like that, why did I go for a year talking to 10 people a day and get all those thousands of no's and wouldn't give up? It's because I decided the night I was in that meeting that I'm going to do this and I'm going to get rich doing it. And I would not give up. And I even had people say, man, you got to go back to the factory. You can't keep doing this. You know, I'm broke. I'm on my knees. I mean, I just, it was, so that decision has to be firm, because you can't, you know, if you want to get wealthy, as an example, whatever that means to you, right. You can't make a decision to be wealthy and one to live in mediocrity at the same time. It's two different decisions. And people say, well, I don't want to make the decision until I have a good opportunity to make the money. No. When you make the decision, it creates a mindset. Now your view of the world changes and you see opportunities, and the view of the world has of you changes, and they come to you instead of you having to go after it. So it's, you know, that's so critical. I see people setting goals and doing vision boards and all this stuff. If it's not backed by decision, it's just mental gymnastics.
Right. That's right. It's you know, to have the vision, and the vision is to enroll others in where you're going, but right, without the action, right, the decision and the action, you can, yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
You got to act on it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's not going to just come to you. You can't just sit back and wait for the law of attraction to bring it to you. If that right. worked the way it's supposed to, we'd all be cruising the Caribbean in our 90-foot yachts, you know.
We're not yet.
You got to take action. But then, you know, what throws us off course is, for some people, they're not bold enough. They don't put themselves on center stage in the spotlight. They hang back. But you can't hang back in today's time. You got to put yourself out there and be seen, be recognized. And if you've got an opportunity or a product you're promoting, you got to toot your own horn, you know, because nobody's going to toot it for you. But the biggest thing is when people go to do something they've never done before, it's painful. It's like leaving that comfort zone, and then you make a decision. You know, do I sink back into my old ways, and do I really want to lose this weight? You know, it's so much more comfortable to have a few glasses of wine, eat some potato chips and a hamburger, and sit with the remote and watch TV than it is to go on a diet or eat right, you know. Or same thing with anything in your life, you know. It's that we always weigh out that pain of changing, and whatever's the least amount of pain is what we usually go with. But if you want to get ahead in life, you better go toward the pain. That's the key.
I agree 1,000%. So, you know, thank you so much. This has been great today, because it's sometimes it's listening to that one person. You never know who it's going to be, but it's listening to that one mentor, that one person. You go, get it. I got it. Then make the decision and go and stand up and be, you know, that it's not about, see, here's where the confusion happens. I hear this a lot, and maybe you could talk about this for a second. If I stand up and I'm the one who's always talking about it, is it not then just about my ego? And am I not then boasting? Can you talk a little bit? I hear that a lot.
Well, yeah, I think you've got to set the example. You know, you got to do it yourself where people want to follow you. You know, it's like, I have 6 sons. And in fact, I wrote a book, What I've Learned from My 6 Sons. I look at all of them as my mentor in some way. And it's been interesting observing them. We homeschooled 4 of the 6, and I did a class in entrepreneurship once a week. Now, I never tried to influence them to become entrepreneurs. I said, you need to think like one. Even if you're going to work for a big company, you'll be more valuable to that company. So I did an hour every week on entrepreneurship for a couple of years. And all four of them are entrepreneurs, not in my business, in their own business. So that influence, I didn't stand up and say, hey, you've got to go do this. I just, I've learned some things over the years, and I've been around for a long time, that I think are valuable. And I don't want people to believe me. All I ask is give it a try and see if it works for you. I have a whole program called Power of Letting Go. And people don't understand the letting go process. If you've got this glass in your hand, it doesn't mean you have to carry it around in your hand the rest of your life. You can set it down. And the same thing with emotional healing and things that's gone wrong in your life and failures that you've had and businesses if you lost, and money you've lost, and whatever it is, you can set it down. It's not that hard to let go and move on. So, but I've practiced that for probably almost 40 years now. So it's second nature for me. If it's not feeling right, I set it down and move on. So if I fail at something, I did an infomercial a while back and cost me almost $750,000 and it didn't work. Well, I just moved on. What else are you going to do?
That's right. People, we do, all of us, I do. We get hung up. I get hung up sometimes. And that's the biggest thing I learned is that failure is really, it's an education piece, because the more you fail, it means you're actually getting out there and doing something. And it's whether you're willing to learn from it or you're taking it as like a crushing blow denial of who you are.
I just look at it as another way that didn't work. And okay, that didn't work. Let's go with this. But I never look at failure as failure, like you failed. It's just something that didn't work.
Right.
And
I like that.
Same thing with fear. I don't look at fear. To me, fear is it's a whole made up story. We concoct it all in our mind that something is going to happen if I go talk to somebody or talk to a stranger or do this or invest this or whatever, invest your time in something that you've got a fear that something's not going to work. Well, it's all made up. So if it's a made up story, why not make up something a little bit more productive?
That's right.
Typically it's taking a past experience, projecting it into the future with the anticipation of it happening again, and then re-experiencing it in the moment. The question is it real in the moment if it was based on a past experience? It's actually more real in the moment because you brought it back in. So, let go of that stuff and move on.
That's good. I like that. All right. I'm going to live. I like that a lot. It is, before I do let you go, and then what we'll do is for those that are listening to this live, we'll take some questions in a minute once we end the podcast part. For those of you listening to the podcast, just go to thementorstudio.com, join the membership. We really want you on the mission with us. We are going to truly make a difference in 2021, plan our 2022 run around the world where we really take it out to the villages and bring mentoring to those who have never had it. But for those of you who are on live right now, we will take some questions in a minute if there are any. You don't have to make up questions to make. Jim and I have been in this business way too long. We're okay one way or the other. But I want to thank everybody for being on. Jim, this has been great because you said, you make it simple in a way. It's not easy. There's nothing easy here, but it's not about complicating it. So just before we do end the podcast part, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're involved in today?
Well, there's several things actually, but I'm involved with Kevin Harrington from the TV show Shark Tank. We're doing a collaborative book series with 20 co-authors in each book. We're now in volume 5. All of them have become #1 international bestsellers. So it's a great PR, marketing, branding, and lead generation for people that's in the book with us. So working on that. I've written 2 books myself since March. One's called The Entrepreneur, Why 90% Fail and How to Avoid the Mistakes They Make. And the other one is called Directing the Movies of Your Subconscious Mind. So it's the 2 things I know well, entrepreneurship and the personal empowerment side.
Wow, that's fantastic. And if they want to reach out to you, what's the easiest way? Should I send them to your website? How would you like them to reach out to you?
Yeah, they can catch me at jimbritt.com. You can message me through there or crackingtherichcode.com. And or you can email it support@jimbritt.com, and I'll get that.
Fantastic. All right. That's for my team too. That's the way Jim wants to be reached. So they'll put it in the show notes. Jim, now you don't go away, but we're going to let the podcast. I want to thank you so much for being on. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Jim is mentoring with us now at the Mentor Studio, and we'll have him on a live Mentor Studio call. We'll be setting that up, and I'll talk to Jim about his schedule. We know the holidays are coming up, so it could be into next year, but we'll make that work. For myself in the Mentor Studio, this has been an honor to have you on, Jim. Thank you so much. You're welcome. And again, go to thementorstudio.com. We really appreciate all of the comments everybody's leaving on there. Thank you for all the wonderful subscriptions to the Mentor Studio, and also the comments. I think we're up to almost 50 or 55 of how much you've enjoyed the show, and we really appreciate all of you out there. Jim, any last words before I turn off the podcast part?
Well, one thing is I think the key to success at anything, once you've made the decision, then realize that every action you take from that point forward is going to move you toward it or away from it. And success at anything is that simple. So
fantastic.
Just watch yourself and observe your actions. And, you know, we can't do it 100% of the time, but boy, if you become aware of that and start to self-observe, you can save yourself a lot of time and become more productive in the process.
Wow, fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim. Thank you, everybody, from the Mentor Studio. We look forward to you on the next show. You know, the shows are once a week, and we really enjoy just all of you in the audience being part of this. All right, everybody, for myself, have a great morning, afternoon, or evening. This is Michael Silvers with the Mentor Studio. So honored to have Mr. Jim Britt on today. Goodbye, everyone.
We're honored that you invested time with us today at the Mentor Studio. Now, don't be greedy. Share this knowledge bomb with all your dope peeps on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. Actually, we'll even pay you to do it. To get the deets, please check out thementorstudio.com.